jump into it right now with Bitcoin. We got a big event today, obviously with the FOMC, and whenever a big event does come, I do look at the big levels essentially, because we do expect kind of violent price action heading into a meeting like that. And realistically, it's not the actual meeting that's probably going to matter. What's really going to matter most is, of course, the conference call that happens afterwards, where, you know, the members kind of give their forwards outlooks and whatnot. Anyways, to boil it down into hopefully the most simplistic analysis right here for the higher term timeframes, as long as Bitcoin is especially below the monthly 20 simple, or even just below last month's high, I do look at this as a lot more likely to trade to the downside here over the next month to month and a half, based off of several things. In this case, could we see a quick wick up to maybe even $41,500 today, if there's some sort of, you know, weird stuff going on with the FOMC? Yeah, definitely possible. I'm not saying that that's likely to happen, but that could very much happen. However, I do want to now focus on the short-term timeframes with that in mind, expecting that, hey, during a meeting like that, you are expected to get some pretty, you know, volatile price action, and, you know, shit can get weird. But at the end of the day, it's about where things close. And if we are going to use some technicals as, of course, an edge, the short-term timeframes are presenting a bit of a case right here. So I do want to bring you over here into the Krown Trading application. And first and foremost, I want to denote note that the lower term time frame, the hourly feed for global open interest, has actually shown an addition of almost 1 billion positions overnight. We went from yesterday, the 3rd, from about 12.37 billion open interest to now at around 13.14 billion. So almost 1 billion in one day added leading up to an event like this. And for what it's worth, when we do check out funny rates, we are getting positive funny rates. You know, I would even say significantly positive funny rates, because if you want a general understanding of funny rates, a really good rule of thumb is that trend versus funding rates can provide a pretty damn good edge, especially in the short term. When you see a downtrend like we're in right now, positive funding rates typically are met by lower highs. Vice versa for uptrends. When you get an uptrend and you get low funding rates, or especially negative funding rates, that is a good signal that it is a nice low. And people kind of get mixed up with this because they will apply the uptrend sort of philosophy within the concept of a downtrend. Obviously, that's not going to have very good results. But in this case, we see that the daily is showing 0.01%, which is, you know, some of the highest rates that we've seen even in the past couple months, actually. If we go down to the hourly, it will show a little bit lower than that, 0.06%, but both of these do suggest, you know, a little bit more downside pressure in the short term within the context of our current ranges. So let's go into it right now. As far as the actual charts go, and what do we see? We see a few other things actually as well that do suggest that today is really going to be fraught with some pretty volatile price action. BBWP, measuring volatility on pretty much all time frames, is, you know, in pretty contracted regions here. For right now, the 4-hour is around about 31.5 percentile. Compare that with a daily, which is literally at 7.5 percentile right here. By the way, we're going to go over big daily signal that's been baking for a while. It's been in progress for the last week or so, and it's still very much active, actually. Anyways, 12 hours is going to be showing 12.30 percentile, and I just kind of want to, you know, short up right there in the sense that, hey, we're very likely looking at, you know, a big move coming. Personally speaking, I do think that this is going to be the big one for the 5-day, as we do see the 5-day close today for CME and also tomorrow for spot price action. In this case, if it closes anything like this, then I will confirm that as the full-on 5-day signal getting going. And from that sort of precipice, the next 40 to 45-ish days, I do expect, you know, about a 45% move, in this case, likely to the downside. If we go over here in reference to 5-day RSI, this signal has not gone away. 5-day and weekly both showing the same thing with hidden bearish divergence. We've obviously already hit the easy targets on that. The next target to the downside would be about 34-ish, give or take about $500 from that number. Anyways, if we go back into the short-term timeframes over here, and reference these ranges, and we'll come up with the range resolutions in a second, which basically, based off the fibs, I would say it's about $39,000 to the upside versus about $37,000 to the downside, the same area that we've kind of been working off of. And also kind of our targeted region from yesterday, there's not really anything to be aware of until we actually break that for the short term. Above $39,000, I do look for Bitcoin to put in a big rally up somewhere around 41,000, actually, somewhere between about 40,500 to 41,000-ish region. That would just meet the monthly level, to be fair, and at least in my opinion, as long as Bitcoin's below there, heavily bearish long term. By the same token, to the downside, any sort of a range resolution below $37,000, and I would be looking for that next leg down with targets probably, I mean, I guess around 35-ish. give or take, or probably more like 36, a stop along there in the short-term timeframes, but ultimately on a daily, probably looking somewhere more around about 34 to 35. Anyways, in this case, we should reference lower-term timeframe stochastic momentum, and you will notice several things over here. 4-hour stochastic momentum is downside angled as long as Bitcoin's below 38,500, so downside pressure as long as Bitcoin is below there. 12-hour is also showing downside pressure with any sort of a closure on the next one below 38,150. 6-hour is going to be showing downside below about 38.3, and 3-hour is going to be showing a loading screen, but downside below about $38,000. So a lot of things kind of pivoted around that mid $38,000 region. Let's call it 38.5. And I'd go as far to say that in the short term, as long as Bitcoin's basically below that 382 right here, I do look at this as, you know, more likely to trade to the downside than the upside. The question is, do we get some violent price action around the FOMC meeting? Definitely. Extremely likely, I should say. Now, here's the thing, and one of the reasons why I continue to have a downside bias for the last, I guess, like a couple months now, really. Basically ever since, like a big one ever since here. That was kind of, in my opinion, the biggest hopium. But one of them was based off of this chart. I think this particular chart is more relevant for today, and then we don't necessarily need to go into the 5-day chart if it's not warranted, but this is the daily volatility versus stochastic chart right here. And what we've noticed about a week ago was we noticed that the daily BBWP was down at basically, for what it's worth, like one digit percentiles, which is incredibly low. These are extreme lows, comparable to what we saw back in January, actually. Now, again, volatility is the measurement of the dispersion of returns, and anytime that we see it very, very low like this, we expect a very violent resolution, which means a breakout or breakdown. Typically, within the case of the last 2 years here that we've measured this out, about a 20% move on average from the expansion of that first move here, which we've actually gotten already. This one is still actually in motion. We identified this about a week ago. We got the first move right here. It's been about, I think, 10% to the downside since. Yeah, almost 10% to the downside. And that would be almost half of what we do kind of expect on that signal. I will be looking for this to continue with downside pressure, and I will have a downside bias based off statistics from this, based off of the daily stochastic momentum oscillator right here. The reason why is because out of the last 10 iterations, not including the one that we currently have right here, but out of the last 10, the daily stochastic momentum has actually gotten the correct direction for 8 out of the last 10. So that is, you know, pretty good results. And if we are going to shave off about 20% off a price action from that expansion time, that would forecast a price somewhere down around around 33,000 bucks or so, give or take a little bit from there. Keep in mind though, because this has been so low for so long, it would be logical to say that this one, the resolution from this compression phase likely is going to be on the higher end of what we have seen throughout these last 10 iterations, which has seen as much as almost 29 to 30% right here on one of the biggest ones. In fact, that was, yeah, the formerly lowest one in this case. So ultimately, I can go as far to say that I am heavily downside biased on Bitcoin as long as we're below about 38,350 specifically. That is the daily level right there. Now, of course, you will, or I should bring this back up, you will notice, or you'll very likely notice, that this is already incredibly fucking low. So whenever it's incredibly fucking low, it is difficult to keep up downside momentum. But hey, as long as this condition is met, that downside momentum will still be available right there. So that would, I would go as far to say that if Bitcoin does close today above 38,350, that will be the next sort of hopium signal that we very likely see a rally up, probably around 40, maybe even $41,000 before another try to the downside. Keep in mind, however, that the higher term time frame is still, you know, very much unchanged here. The monthly chart, as we did kind of point out earlier, which, do I want to get into this? Yeah, we can get into this for a second. We do still see the monthly MACD cross to the downside. Has happened 3 times in Bitcoin's history. That combined with PMAR, which, you know, we've already seen that, but that combined with the white 20 simple closing below that on a monthly schedule, like you see right here, like you see right here, like you see right here, and like right here as well, has led each and every time to a move at minimum to the green moving average here, which is a 55 exponential. That's actually significantly further down at around about $25,000 or so. So I do think, like, what worst case scenario long term is probably somewhere down around there. Can it get worse over time? Maybe yes, but you know, we're getting way ahead of ourselves right now, and I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. If it even is going to happen, I still remain with the most likely thing to happen here is probably another stab to the downside, and I think the hopium case is something like this. Actually, something like this, yeah, where Bitcoin comes back down to those prior weekly lows and then puts in a bit of a higher low, works its way along, and then maybe around like end of summer, early Q4 of 2022, you'd see something like this, confirmed with major upside targets. You know, probably well past $60,000 over time if Bitcoin does start to close above about $44,000. But that's my line in the sand for the macro. As long as Bitcoin's below there, pressure down essentially, and you know, it's just kind of a game of range resolutions here. Other than that, I forgot to shill my Instagram earlier. Please understand that my only Instagram account is in the link in the description below. Any other Instagram account is a scammer trying to get you to sign up to their fucking whatever the hell it is, who knows. And then also ByBit shill as well. They got a $3,000 or $4,000 deposit bonus. There's also a link in the description as well here. As always, when it comes to these sort of things, please understand that leverage trading is going to be is probably not going to treat you too well. Statistically speaking, 80% of people just lose or never have any like long-term gains. Understand that unless if you've actually back tested your strategy on some sort of a testnet account, which you can definitely do there as well, or on the app for free, then you know I wouldn't expect good results. So please do be safe and responsible with that. And I think I'll leave it right there. Hopefully that was helpful, sirs and zers.